Welcome to Lanterns Live. It's Ralph. I am joined by Vactor today from This Comic Cooks. We're discussing Green Lantern Corps #2. Here we are. And I think it was last month, Green Lantern Corps #1, where you joined me in the chat and you're like, "This book's amazing.
Yes,
let's do it. Let's do #2." So yeah, I find it kind of easy to do the podcast by myself. But it's much easier when I have a guest, someone to bounce off of. I feel like I don't have to, like when I read the book, I just kind of read it fairly quickly. But when I know I'm doing a show by myself, I like really focus in because I got to make sure that I cover all my bases. So
yes.
it's nice to have a backup here. You wanted to be on because you liked Green Lantern Corps #1. And here we are for 2. What are your overall thoughts on #2 before we get into the story?
Yes, so far I am enjoying my decision to jump in because this is something that I've been wanting to get a Green Lantern fix since the last time I was on your show and we were talking about Green Lantern.
I have some stuff to talk about.
Oh man, I haven't been keeping up. So I was like, man, how can I dip my toe back in? And Green Lantern Corps just started up. So I was like, yes, this is a perfect time. And so far, these first 2 issues, I'm very happy.
Right. So here's the big question. Now, also the last time you were on, another way you're going to get your Green Lantern fix was watching Green Lantern, the animated series, which I don't believe you finished yet.
I'm almost halfway. Almost.
Okay. So like, here's the thing with this book is when something happens in the book, you'll get the editor's note at the bottom saying this is referring to the Green Lantern Fractured Spectrum book, issue 1 or whatever, What it doesn't say is if you want to know about this character Razor, go watch all of the Green Lantern, the animated series. Because boy, they just assume that everybody has seen that show, and they definitely haven't. I guarantee you, if everybody had seen that show, it'd still be on the air. But Jeremy Adams and Morgan Hampton and company, they're adding Razor in here like as if he's a well-known character. He's showed up a little bit. I don't even know if he showed up in the comic books until Jeremy Adams' Green Lantern run, and starting in 2023. So like you have to know, and I don't know if you're getting spoiled on stuff.
You are the reason that I even know who Razor is. Like the last time we were on and we were talking about Jeremy Adams' Green Lantern run, you were like, "Oh yeah, he was in that show," and I was like, "Oh, I guess I should watch that." And now having that knowledge of at least 45% of the show, I can say, "Oh yeah, okay, I know who that is." And him talking about his kind of love, and I was like, "Oh, that's kind of." I'm starting to get little hints of that in the show, and so yeah, this is very
you might have to
good.
fast track that second half.
I do need to move it up.
Yeah. The Daredevil's done, right?
Well, just started actually. So Invincible's done.
Oh, I thought it was.
So that is done. Yes. Daredevil just started last week, and so this is the second week that it's been airing.
Right. Okay. So here's the thing. I'll tell you this. This is the first time I've seen Razor as a Green Lantern, so that won't spoil you on the show.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So that was a little bit of a surprise. And when I saw him, I'm like, that looks like Razor. Is it Razor? And then it's totally Razor. But there is maybe 10 years after Green Lantern, the animated series, was unceremoniously canceled from Cartoon Network. There was an episode of Young Justice where Razor shows up in that.
Oh, and I'm behind on that.
Okay, so and in that one, Razor is something completely different.
Oh wow. Okay.
So they're really like, people dig Razor, but since he was created for the show and doesn't have any sort of comic book background, I feel like creators of Young Justice and the creators of Green Lantern Corps, the book, are like, well, he's a blank slate. We can do whatever we want with him. So seeing him as Green Lantern was definitely a surprise. I'm sure it was to you. Did you have any thoughts where you're like, oh, am I getting spoiled on the cartoon?
I
Or
was thinking that, but I was also like, man, I'm just happy that this character is getting a comic, like a full on comic run or appearance. And so
yeah,
that made me happy. That was the only thing I was thinking about. But then I was also hearing the voice actor's voice in my head as
right.
Razor was talking. So my experience, not as rich as yours, but I
Mm,
think it's more than the people who haven't seen the show at all. So I am also recommending, like Ralph, everyone watch that show.
yeah, I think as far as my knowledge of Razor goes, I am only like 11 episodes and one episode of Young Justice beyond your knowledge. Like you're
I'm
so close. He's not. He's literally the first time that you saw Razor was the first time I saw Razor, which
dang,
was episode 1 of Green Lantern the animated series. So
that's
you're
crazy.
like you're on the ground floor as far as this
Yes,
character goes. And so
yes.
seeing him as a Green Lantern for me was like that is weird to me. It's
Mm,
really weird to me. Um, I've seen artwork uh, where like fan art where Razor's like a Blue Lantern or stuff like that. Um, but seeing it in a book where he is actually a Green Lantern, I thought was really interesting. Also, like I mean, I thought it was nuts. I thought it was nuts that he was just flat out like I miss Aya and people. There's no context to that at all.
right, right.
So if you are a fan of Green Lantern and somehow haven't seen Green Lantern the animated series, go watch it. I recommend it. I will always recommend it. Vactor, who is new to this series, I believe, as far as even though you're not completed with it, and I'm so jealous because you get to sort of experience this for the first time. I wish I could do that again. But I'm sure you also recommend Green Lantern, the animated
Yeah, we
series.
actually, you and I talked about this on This Comic Cooks, my YouTube channel last week. I think it's kind of like the original Star Trek show where
Yeah,
I don't like the visuals, like the special effects do not hold up today by
yeah,
today's standards,
mhm,
but those stories are timeless and there's so many layers and texture to the nuance of the storytelling. Green Lantern, the animated show, is like that also, where
mhm.
it felt dated to me when it first aired, and that's why I stopped
Right.
watching it because I was like, I don't like the fluidity of the movement is not
Yeah,
there for me. But now that you encouraged me to watch it, I'm really glad that you did. I'm loving the stories that are happening, and so I can put aside the visuals not being really my cup of tea. It's the
mhm,
storytelling and the voice acting that is really
yeah,
hooking me in.
yeah. And now, when you read this book, do you hear like Dietrich Bader and Kevin Michael Richardson as those voices?
Yes, and
I
because
kind of do.
I'm yeah, recently watching that
Oh,
show,
you're knee
and
deep into it.
I love Kevin Michael Richardson just
Yeah.
in general. He's a and Dietrich Bader too, but his voice is like the perfect Kilowog to me.
Mhm.
So I'm right in there.
I'm hoping maybe in the show Lanterns. I believe rumors have said that Kilowog will appear in the Lantern series.
Whoa.
I'd be okay with Kevin Michael Richardson. In fact, it's so funny because
Ooh.
here's another thing. So when I read Invincible now, I hear the voice actors
Oh,
who
nice,
are on
nice.
the show, and Kevin
Mm.
Michael Richardson, he does many,
He does a
many
ton
like
of
terrific
voice.
voices
Yes,
across his
yes,
career, but his
yes. The
Kilowog voice is
Maulers.
very similar to the Maulers. And so it's like one of those things where I'm like, oh, now he's like the Maulers. But I'm
Yes.
hoping for like the Lantern series, like I hope they would consider him for Kilowog, um, mostly because like he did Kilowog. Michael Clark Duncan did Kilowog in the 2011 movie.
Oh,
There
yeah.
was a game. There was a game that came out of that called Rise of the Manhunters,
I
where
actually like
Ryan
that game.
Reynolds. Yeah, the game was fun. Ryan Reynolds did the voice of Hal Jordan, and it looked like him from the movie. And Kilowog, they didn't have Michael Clark Duncan; they had Kevin Michael Richardson.
Nice.
And when the ring talked, it was Gray Griffin or Gray Delisle,
Oh wow. Okay.
who's the voice of Aya, did the
Yes.
voice of the Power Rings. And so there was like this weird like continuity between that video game. That video game was a bridge between the movie and the series. And I kind of like if they do a ring voice, which I'm hoping they do in the series, because the ring talks to the lanterns. I'm hoping it's Gray Griffin.
Oh man.
I
She's
think it would be
fantastic.
great. And I would like Kevin Michael Richardson to come back as Kilowog because I think he's the perfect voice. He in that Young Justice, Kilowog shows up and they drew him like the Green Lantern the animated series armor, and it's Kevin Michael Richardson doing the voice.
Okay, let me ask you this. Should I continue on Green Lantern or should I continue on Young Justice? Because I'm in the second season of Young Justice right now. There's more total Young Justice episodes.
Yeah, I would say, I would say whatever you do, don't get to that Young Justice episode with Razor until you finish
because that takes place after. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It takes place after, and also was released like something like 10 years later. Like it was way after the series was done.
Yes.
And all of a sudden it was this big news that Razor was going to be on Young Justice, and people were going crazy. Same voice actor, Jason Spisak, did the voice for both. So I would say just make sure before you get to that episode of Young Justice, finish Green Lantern, the animated series. Okay. And then watch Young Justice. And it has nothing to do with this. Like this version of Razor is completely like different from those.
Okay. I'm making a pledge to you. I'm going to watch one episode of Green Lantern every night until I finish it. Just one episode. And I will be done probably by
12 days and like within 2 weeks.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, go for it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's Thanagarians in the Green Lantern the animated series. I don't know if you've got to that point yet.
I don't think so. Like now I'm kind of
you're so close. It's like the last 2 episodes of the first half. Okay. So 11 and 12 maybe.
Actually, you know what? I think I am on 11. So I think I just started. But then I've got this issue that we're talking about in my head also. So I'm like, did I see that in the story? Or I mean the animated show or the comic? Yes. Okay.
Let's talk about the comic book.
That first issue, the last page, when Shahira comes in, I was like, oh, because I was a huge Justice League Unlimited fan. I was watching every episode. So when she came in, I was like, what? Because they had that relationship on the show.
Right.
So yeah, when that was a great cliffhanger to issue 1. That got me pumped. And that's why I wanted to be on this episode, because I was like, oh, I got to talk about the next episode. And I really liked the way that she came in there. She's taking no prisoners. She's like going at Atrocitus, and she's like, oh, that's the last time you're going to get a hit on me. That I think they did a fantastic job of her voice.
Yeah. This also, speaking of the animated series, there's a lot of characters from the Green Lantern, the animated series in this. I'm not even sure. I'm trying to think how far you've gotten and who else shows up. Zelaya Zox is definitely in the animated series by this point.
Okay. Yes.
And it's funny. Red Lantern guy.
Yeah, because when I saw him in this, I was like, is that MODOK? And I was like, wait a minute, no, this is DC. When I saw that,
I never put those together. They're very similar.
Yeah.
It's just a giant face and a ball. So Thanagar is like pretty much destroyed.
Yeah. What happened? Was that this book? Did that happen in this book, or was that another issue that I missed?
It was another issue, and I want to say it was either Fractured Spectrum, or it was the end of the Green Lantern run where Mogo had turned into a Red Lantern.
Oh,
and was like
I need to read that
stuff. Yeah, I want to say that was the end of Green Lantern. And Sinestro came in as a Red Lantern and basically absorbed all of Mogo's powers.
Oh,
or was Mogo yellow? I think he was red.
I need to read this.
It's a Red Lantern, but it was like nuts. So that's where we're at. Atrocitus is here. He's in a ship and he's like burrowing into the core of Thanagar, which is pretty crazy. Yeah, look at this. He's like, I was like drilling down into the thing.
Yeah, that's a great shot. That's a great panel.
this is pretty cool. The Atrocitus is in a ship that's not quite shard from the animated series, but it's very close. It's a very similar thing. The spectrum is fractured, so it's kind of like things are jacked up and power batteries are not really working. So all the Red Lanterns are wearing these suits. Now, in the animated, I don't know how familiar you are with the Red Lantern Corps, but when you get the ring, it essentially like destroys your heart.
Oh.
And your body is now like, and they spit like fire out of their mouth and blood because essentially like they're so consumed with rage that their body is now completely consumed with rage, and their heart is like pretty much melted and destroyed. So if you notice, a lot of these Red Lanterns are wearing like little bodysuits, and I think that's the reason why they don't flat out say it, but they're all wearing bodysuits and like respiratory stuff.
See, I was thinking that it was like, okay, so because the other emotions are messed up, their rings don't work, right? Because there's no batteries to power them up. So those suits are like their batteries, and that's what's powering, and that's why Atrocitus is able to make constructs. We don't see any of the other Red Lanterns make constructs, do we? Was it just Atrocitus?
Does Atrocitus make a construct?
Yeah, it's when he's fighting Shaira and John. He makes like a hammer or something. So I was thinking, that's just the suit. But then nobody else, now that I'm thinking of it, I didn't even think of it as I was reading it, but nobody else makes a construct. But I guess they weren't in a fight.
Right. But yeah, it's something that's alluded to a teeny bit in Green Lantern, the animated series. I know at one point Razor's ring is losing power and he needs to recharge his battery.
Yeah.
And they don't really get to it in detail in that or in this, but yeah, when you become a Red Lantern, it pretty much like destroys your heart. Which is why I'm curious to know about Razor being a Green Lantern. Maybe he has an artificial heart. I think we have artificial hearts here on Earth. I'm sure with future alien technology that they can also do that for Razor.
Well, is it like a prolonged experience? Because Guy was a Red Lantern, but was that so short that it didn't?
I guess so.
I need to do some research.
I need to know the rules. Yeah, if there's anybody that in the comments, let us know.
Tell us,
because I mean the whole Red Lantern thing's been going since like what 2008 or 2009.
Yeah, dang,
like Blackest Night and stuff. So some of the details are kind of fuzzy because usually like since then, like Jeff Johns described it, freaking like over like 15 years ago, and then now it's like people are just like, oh, those are Red Lanterns, and you just don't think about what the rules are. But this is just basically what reminded me that is the case, that they don't have their heart, is the fact that they're all wearing these sort of mech suits. So let me know in the comments. Let me know where we're wrong, because again, I'm not an expert. I'm just a fan, and I love if there's stuff I missed, like I want to know what's right, because it's really it's nice to kind of know these things, and my brain isn't what it used to be, and it's packed with a lot of other stuff: Star Wars knowledge, James Bond knowledge, Invincible, Lost. Like it's just there's so much bouncing around in here that I tend to forget like what exactly happens to Red Lantern's hearts after it hasn't been discussed in, God, geez, it's like 18 years.
Yeah.
Is that right?
And that's like
2025.
That is crazy. If I want to say, when we were reading those issues, when the Jeff Johns run was going on, was it that there was less comics coming out, or are we just old now that it seems like it? Because when those were coming out, I was able to keep up. I was able to keep all the storylines in my head. Now I'm like, I gotta focus on specific things for a podcast or something, because it's too much.
It's tough because in like 2005, which is when John started Rebirth, that's 20 years ago. There wasn't really YouTube.
That's
YouTube
right.
might have been around, but we really weren't talking about this stuff. There wasn't like a lot of discourse. And now, like, I watch shows about Invincible and Star Wars and James Bond and all this stuff, and I watch stuff on Sonic the Hedgehog because I love Sonic the Hedgehog and,
Yeah,
and
nice.
everything you could think of. So now I just get so much more information thrown at me instead of just like, I'm going to read this Green Lantern book. I read the Green Lantern book, and that's the only Green Lantern information I had. I retained it all. And then next month I would read the next one and I would retain it all. But now we're getting in the age of the internet and getting in the age of YouTube and podcast and everything else. And it's just like, you can know everything at the touch of a button, that it's like little bits and pieces pop out of my head. So like that's one of them for sure.
I feel like the Marvel character Taskmaster, where he knows everyone's moves, he can just see your moves and remember it, but then he has to lose something because he's got so much knowledge in his head, so he forgets his wife, his daughter, like he forgets all this vital information that you would want to know. That's what I feel like. I feel like as soon as I read something or watch something, I'm forgetting something else. But
yeah. And I didn't remember it until I opened up this book today and read this. What did you think of this? Like as a Justice League and Justice League International fan, this moment here.
Oh man,
well, really awkward.
Yeah, it's funny because like you can see yourself in that position, you could picture yourself, but also from that show, from the animated series, how much is like a leftover, like was that in continuity, you're thinking? So it was just a great moment, I think, for the fans.
They're definitely treating it for fans of Justice League
100%.
And I love, like, if you really zoom in on this picture, there's no point where their skin is connecting and touching.
Ooh.
Like I'd noticed that, like they're just like they're just there's daylight between them all the way.
Nice.
There's no and it's like tension. It's like sexual tension, like just in that drawing.
Which is great. That's just great storytelling, and it keeps you like, oh, what's gonna happen next? What's gonna happen next? It keeps you, it's like, oh. And DC's doing actually a really good job right now because Mark Waid is writing Justice League International, Justice League Unlimited, sorry. And the opening page looks like the opening of the show, where it's like all the characters in a row, and there's like, so I think they're doing it for a lot of us Justice League Unlimited fans. It's a good time right now, and it's a good time to be a Green Lantern fan.
Yeah, I think the way James Gunn is doing things, I feel like his Superman movie reminds me of like Justice League Unlimited, where it's just like, here are the characters. We're just going to throw these characters in. If you want to know more about them, go read the comics.
Yes.
Like I think Guy Gardner is only going to be in Superman for maybe like tops, like 4 minutes. I don't think he's going to be in a lot of the movie. But it's one of those things where if some like 10-year-old kid is sitting in the theater and they're watching the movie, they're going to be like, who's that guy? Who's that weird guy with the bowl cut is kind of a jerk? Like that would be enough for me to like get into like Green Lantern.
Yeah.
So,
and that's how Star Wars was when we were growing up, when the original trilogy came out, and it was like, okay, there's a random reference to an alien you saw in the background of a shot, and then the novels filled out the backstory, the comics, role-playing games. That's how I think our approach should be to these things. You don't have to necessarily spend a ton of time. You don't have to know every single character, but if somebody wants to, they can go and they can have their avenues to learn about those characters.
Right. And that was a thing with Star Wars when I was a kid, was there was 3 movies, 2 Ewok movies, and a couple of cartoons. There was no new Star Wars information coming in. And so I would absorb all that was there. But nowadays, for the last 10 years, it's just been, and then even like 20 years ago with the prequels, it just keeps getting more and more information tossed in. And now my Star Wars stuff, like, I don't know, like I used to know like everything about Ponda Baba. That's all gone.
Oh man.
But but you know, I think the thing with the Green Lantern too is like, it's a nice, for the most part, it's just the comic. And if I'm lucky, I'll get a movie or I'll get a cameo.
I'm telling you, we need another Green Lantern video game. You talked about that the movie one. Like, give us another one of those. I want it. I want it. Somebody make it.
That Rise of the Manhunters game was pretty good. It was like a sort of a kind of a God of War style beat 'em up, and you can play 2 players, and if you're the second player, played as Sinestro.
Oh wow.
It was a fun game, and if you can find it, it's pretty cheap. But they had a side scrolling version of Rise of the Manhunters on like the 3DS.
Oh,
and it starts off a little slow going, but as you start building up your powers and stuff, you move around pretty fast. It's like a platformer, but you can like hover, and you can make all kinds of constructs, and you can do all kinds of stuff. I highly recommend checking out both. I don't know if that's on, like, you can get like a ROM or something of the 3DS side scroller, but it was good.
You could.
It was a lot of fun. You can make all kinds of constructs, and you can decide, like, you can like scroll through and pick which constructs you wanted for different button configurations. And there's this one where you're at a green drill, and you can like, it was so cool. It was like a Metroidvania style game.
Oh yes, I love those type of games. And it's like the Green Lantern constructs and the powers, they translate so well to video games, and you just figure like we would have seen more by this time. It's like, man, the last 20 years we've been in this dry spell. Let's get some more Green Lantern. Really, the only video game I think has been like the fighting games that DC and Warner Brothers has been putting out. Injustice, that's been like a lot of Green Lantern content. But give us a dedicated Green Lantern game. Even do it on the animated series.
There's this game coming out today. Actually,
I got an alert about that. Set. Yeah,
it's in 3 hours and 15 minutes.
Yes.
It's called what is it called? It's called DC Dark Legion.
Yes,
it launches soon.
So
yeah, it starts tonight. So after I'm done watching Invincible, I'll be playing that, because they mentioned that Hal Jordan and Sinestro will be in that game. There was a mobile game, I forget what it was called. It was a DC fighting game, kind of like Marvel Snapped, or what's the Star Wars turn-based.
Oh, I know what you're. Yeah, I can see it in my mind, but I can't remember the.
But they had Hal, Kyle, Sinestro, who's the Wolfman Green Lantern, Arcus.
Yes.
They had Alan Scott. They had like probably like 12 lanterns. They had Black Hand. They had like a bunch of lantern stuff. Jessica Cruz. I don't think Simon Baz made it on there. Guy Gardner, I think, made it on there. But it was like whoever made the game definitely was into Green Lantern.
Wow.
But that game has since gone away, which is unfortunate, but that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we need more.
So Bleez and a couple of the other former Red Lanterns are at the bottom of the core, like digging something up. Whatever they're drilling down for, they're going for this thing. And we have Razor and Kilowog on the case, which, again, they're upside down in the book. So, but dude, like this is huge. Like for me, I'm like, oh my God, we have Kilowog and Razor back. Which, yeah, you got to get through that series. But yeah, they're spying on these guys, and it's basically the Lanterns are here to see what's going on. These guys are still searching for nth metal. They're looking for stuff to recreate power batteries. The information's out there, and we notice that their power is kind of hooked up to like Zelaya Zox, which is nuts. I love that like this character looks like it would be a joke, but is no joke. And I like the balance that the show did with that character. But in this one, it's so funny because this is like the 4th or 5th character from the animated series that made it into this book. But Zelaya Zox has been around before the series, but I think it's really funny that this book is focusing on some of those characters from the animated series. This is the thing. This is the thing that caught my eye, was Razor cowering in the corner.
Right.
Now, if you notice the speech bubble, it's gray. It's gray and white. And it didn't occur to me when that happened that he was within distance of the Sorrow Lantern,
Yep.
One Mr. Nathan Broom. And we finally get what his powers do, which is essentially like creates a mist of sorrow that sort of infects the user and pretty much cripples them, which I think is a really, really cool power set against army whose whole like power is based on will and willpower and to overcome fear. Yeah, you could overcome fear, but this is overcoming sorrow. So I actually really, really like this concept of he just wanders in and there's this mist that follows him that could just sort of jack everybody up.
I'm actually surprised that it hasn't been done already. Like that's a concept you would think for, like you said, for a willpower based opponent.
Yeah.
That's something that they would do before. But yeah, I was like you when I saw that. I was like, oh, that's such an excellent use of the emotional spectrum. And John's was like that on his run when he opened up all the colors and all the emotions. It was like, why hasn't someone thought of this before? This is such a great idea.
No sense. And the spectrum fits so perfectly with green right in the middle, the Roy G. Biv of it all, and then with the black and the white lanterns on either side, and it was just like, oh, it's just so perfect. And a lot of what he did was fear and fear-based stuff, but we know Green Lanterns have the ability to overcome great fear. So sorrow is a different story. Sorrow is definitely a different story than fear.
Yeah. I think playing up on the emotional aspect of it is also just great because there's something core to every human who's reading the book. We all have these emotions. We all deal with them on a daily basis. And like you said, even the colors, the Roy G. Biv of it all is a primal thing of the human eye detecting color and the way that we experience the world. It's just something, even my son who just turned 4 years old, it's like, red is my favorite color or green is my favorite color. That's just something that is within all of us. So putting it in the pages of these comics, I thought we got to give Jeff Johns credit of opening that up.
Crazy. Like, how did nobody think of that?
Yeah.
There's a whole, like, the Green Lantern Corps has been around since like Showcase 22. Abin Sur. We knew he's an alien. We knew that he's part of a police force. And it's like, why did it take so long? Even with Sinestro. Sinestro comes into the story. We know Green Lantern has a weakness against yellow. Sinestro comes in wearing all blue and black with a yellow ring. And it's like, the yellow ring makes sense. Here's this whole army of Green Lanterns. Why did it take until Jeff Johns in 2005 to start planting the seeds of, well, there's also an army of yellow? Like, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. If you have one guy with the yellow ring, you could dispatch 3,600 Green Lanterns after him and probably stop him. But why wouldn't that guy make more of those rings? Like Jeff Johns had to have just been sitting on this idea and just been like, it's like fighting his way to get into position to get into DC and be like, listen, guys, this is the thing. And that's probably when he got Rebirth, was when he probably, I don't know who was the head at the time. Maybe it was Dan DiDio, or I'm not sure, but I'm sure he presented this. Yeah. I'm assuming he presented this idea then and was like, here's the breakdown. And then they just like went with it. It's baffling. And then, yes, again, like there has been like the Gold Lantern and stuff like that. It seems like every writer who's come in after Johns is trying to add to the spectrum.
Yep.
I feel like Jeremy Adams cracked it. I think he's the first to crack it with the Sorrow Lantern, because it's literally like, it's gray is like a muted color. It's the absence of color. It's not quite death. It's not quite life. It's between the black and gray. And so it's like this sort of despair.
Yes.
And I like that the power is this haze, because sometimes when you're feeling sorrow or depression or something, you feel like you're literally in a haze. And so to like show it this way in the book, I think is really, really clever, because I've been waiting this whole time to see what the power sets were. Now, here's it's too bright now. Kilowog, battling the Sorrow Lantern, and we were like at the beginning of this, when you see Thanagar exploded, there's a line in there that alludes to Kilowog, who also lost his planet of Bolovax Vic. So this is something where this is fresh in Kilowog's mind, and it just shows you how powerful Kilowog is, that even though he's in a destroyed planet, which would definitely remind him that he's the last of his species or race, that he still has enough willpower to not succumb to the sorrow. I think Razor is susceptible to it, because Razor has all kinds of emotions going on. You see that in Green Lantern, the animated series. And also, with we clearly see like his sort of missing Aya is an issue, and he doesn't have the willpower yet. He is a Green Lantern, but you learn that, like, listen, this sorrow is no joke. It's a new spectrum. It's a new color in the spectrum, but everybody has dealt with sorrow at one point or another. So I think it's a really, really, I wasn't sure at first. I was like, oh, here's Jeremy Adams. He's creating a new thing. They all try to do it. It never works. I think this works.
Yeah, 100%. And even that main Green Lantern book is just like a testament to, this is something that is primal, something that the core of the emotions, and even like the way that we talk about mental health these days, way different than 10, 15, 20 years ago. And depression, sorrow, those things, it's essential to the spectrum. It's not just happy, it's not just sad. There's all these in between. So I think this is great. Like, this is just a fantastic way to showcase that. And like you said, just the weaponization of sorrow is really cool to watch. Like, this would be something that I feel like even in a live action setting, in a movie or a TV show, we could see a villain using that and being very formidable. Like, this is somebody you don't want to mess with, because the way he can make you feel is a weapon.
Yeah. In the Green Lantern book, the Jeremy Adams run, it took forever for him to introduce or reintroduce Kyle Rayner into the story, or I guess introduce him into the story. And when he does, Kyle Rayner is like sitting in a fetal position in a corner, and he's swirling all the colors of the spectrum.
Oh.
And I feel like the reason why he was crouched in that corner was he was now letting in this new power, this new emotion into his body, which is sorrow. Because if you look at Razor's in that same like sort of on the ground fetal position that we saw Kyle in.
That's interesting. Now you make me want to, and I need to get caught up on
the.
Okay, after this is over, I'm watching an episode and I'm reading an issue of the main Green Lantern Jeremy Adams run. I'm doing it tonight, everybody.
Do it. It's great. So they get in a tussle. Walls start crumbling around these guys. Atrocitus doesn't care that his people are down there or other people are down. He does not care at all. Nathan Broom, I think that's his name. The Sorrow Lantern is like, he's like, what's happening? And Kilowog's like, why don't you stick around and find out? We're taking off. And what we get is, this is like in the center of the planet, or it's just was buried definitely beneath the planet, was this gigantic sort of nth metal egg. And next issue says, what lies within? Like, okay, so here's what I'm thinking. Do you have any thoughts? Do you think you know what's inside of it?
There's a ton of possibilities going through my mind. I can't settle on a specific one, but I'm thinking, I guess I'm leaning towards, like, if it's an egg, there's like a baby or there's something inside that's gonna come out. that we don't know about.
Right. I mean, the Thanagarians' whole society is based on birds. They're the Hawkmen. So is this some sort of like, this is now the rebirth of whatever it was like for millennia, whatever they're worshiping me, whatever the hawk is on their chest, is that this?
Oh,
Is it the
wow.
rebirth of that? And also, is it an entity? Is it like Ion or Predator or any of the other entities or Parallax
Oh, wow.
that fuel the power batteries? Is this a living entity? This is exciting because I don't know. Talk about a great cliffhanger.
Yeah, just like issue 1, like these first 2 issues have had these great last splash pages that hook you in. Okay, I have to know what's going to happen next. Like both of these issues, they did their job. So yeah, I don't know if they can keep it up, but so far they're doing it.
Yeah, if that's an egg on the Hawk World planet, it's going to be big.
For some omelets.
You could zoom in, and I don't even see like any Green Lanterns or stuff, but this thing looks gigantic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming it's gigantic.
It's got to be. It's like it was in the planet core, like inside, like deep within. So yeah,
I'm ready.
I want to know what's going to happen next.
So here's the thing: if you want to join me next month to discuss what's in there, you more than welcome.
I'm in.
Okay, cool. Because Will's been coming on to talk about like the Green Lantern issues, but if you want to come on for Green Lantern Corps, this only requires 1 book a month.
Yeah,
sign me up. You don't have to watch a show. You don't have to watch a show a night. You don't have to read an issue a night. Just once a month. But I want to see what's inside there, and I want you to come back to talk about it because I'm really excited to find out. For me personally, I think Green Lantern Corps has always been like a really fun book to read in conjunction with Green Lantern. Back when Jeff Johns was doing his thing on Green Lantern, Peter Tomasi and Patrick Gleason were doing their thing on Green Lantern Corps, and it was always fun because they always tied into each other, but it just kind of fleshed out the story a little bit more. Also, I appreciate that the price point on Green Lantern Corps is $3.99 as opposed to $4.99 like the regular series. So that's good. It doesn't feel like I'm spending too much, especially for the amount of entertainment I'm getting and just having fun on the show. Like it's totally worth the $3.99 a month. Do you have any final thoughts on this issue? Now you really liked issue 1. Did it continue in the right trajectory? Did you feel like there was a dip in quality? What are your thoughts on issue 2?
I think it was consistent. The first issue, I think that newness of being a brand new number 1, there was something about that like the shine, the luster of a new number 1, that this one, it went down a little bit for me, but the storytelling is still there. And what I really liked about this issue was the Hawk Girl, John Atrocitus fight that they had where they're bringing out the constructs. The action was really great. And then their kind of sexual tension between those two. So that, in addition to the razor stuff and everything, they're doing a good job of spinning those plates of, what's happening in the A story, what's happening in the B story. I'm enjoying everything. There's nothing that's filler to me. Like everything is really good. So I'm all in on this book right now.
Cool. That's awesome. And then we'll talk next month. Before you do that, let people know where you can be seen.
Yes.
When you're not on Lanterns Live.
I have a comic book show called This Comic Cooks, which Ralph was on last week. We talked about his Green Lantern journey and his visit to the Green Lantern set, which you saw right on Lanterns Live. We talked all about that. And if you're a Star Wars fan, I have a show called Trust in the Force, and I'm going to be talking about Andor Season 2 next month. Yeah. So you're going to want to stay tuned. Those are my 2 places you can find me.
That's awesome. And I guess if you like the show Invincible, the series finale of Invincible happened today, and I'll have a new Invincipod live tomorrow at our normal time over at invincipod.com. Vactor, thanks again for joining me. Thanks for having me again on your podcast. I don't think that I've ever done like an origin story of my sort of Green Lantern fandom on this channel. So head over there. If you go to my page, just scroll down to the bottom. I have a whole section where I'm guests on other podcasts talking about Green Lantern, and mine's with you. This Comic Cooks is the first one on there. It's the most recent. So check that out. Vactor, thanks again. And until next time, beware my podcast. It's Lanterns Live. Bye.